Hi guys, my name is Linda Sefumba and welcome back to Conversations with my big sister. Today I'm with Sis Mamello. She came to join us today. She's going to be having an open and honest conversation with us, and I hope that you really enjoy today's segment. I think I'm going to thoroughly enjoy it, and I'm going to learn so much from you. She's an amazing woman and she's gone through so much in her life, and today she's just going to open up and share that experience with you. So enjoy. See you in a couple of minutes. So welcome to Conversations with my big sister. Thank you for being so willing to come in.
Thank you for having me.
We're so grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I just wanted to find out, where are you from? Like, where were you born and where were you raised?
Yeah. So I was raised in Soweto, born in Johannesburg. And yeah, go Soweto, I basically grew up go Zone 7, Meadowlands, which is where my grandmother had a home. And my mother left me with her because she had to work Kotropong. So she would leave me with her during the week, and then I would visit my mother. She had a back room in Zone 3, Deep Kloof.
Okay.
So I essentially grew up Soweto, and then I moved to Protea North, and then Glen with my aunt as well. Stayed with her for the same reasons. My mother was working, so I was going to preschool during the week with transport. And yeah, I basically left Soweto officially. I think I was around the age of 6, just before I started with like grade 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So you were raised by mom, raised by granny,
mom, but
by
raised
aunt
by
as well.
raised by aunt, essentially. But
That's
my aunt didn't play such a huge role because she was a nurse, so she was also away a lot.
Yeah.
She was working night shifts or day shifts, so it was always a 12-hour shift.
Oh, I see.
So when I do see her, she's literally going to her bedroom to rest for her next shift. But my grandmother played a huge role in raising me and basically shaping the person that I am today.
Hectic.
Actually.
And like your dad, where was your dad during the time?
So my father was with my mom. They lived together in the back room.
Okay.
And he passed away when I was about a year and a half.
Oh, shucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, a year and a half.
That,
also, I don't really know him. He was Sotho.
Yeah.
Is like I'm half Sotho. He was a prince actually.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, so you're royalty.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, guys.
Can I just?
We are in the presence of royal blood.
Yes. But yeah, he was a prince from Kuting.
Oh,
And then he came to Joburg and tried to develop a life for himself up here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which was a little. I think it was stunted by he was an alcoholic.
Oh, okay.
So he died from alcohol-related ulcers.
Oh, I see.
That had later then burst and, ruptured.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, I know that you are a chef.
Yes.
So did you then go and study?
I did.
Okay.
I studied. Actually, when I left high school, I went and I studied hospitality management.
Oh, okay.
Which is the same thing. It was at the International Hotel School.
Okay.
But it's a 3-year instead of a 2-year specialized course in chefing.
Oh, I see.
And from high school, I was kind of headhunted, and they just said, you've been good, and we saw that you were great in the practical field.
Oh, nice.
We would love that you join us, and that was at the Michelangelo. So I joined the Michelangelo.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So were you doing like home economics at school? Is that how they saw you, or what
I
was
didn't
this
do
practicality that they recognized?
So practicals we did in the 3-year diploma course.
Okay.
So you have to do a certain number of hours in the hotels and restaurants.
Oh, so they take you to the hotels
to
go do the practicals.
Yeah, so during the 3-year diploma course we did on-the-job training.
That is fantastic.
And yeah, they recruited me from there, and I started in chefing, which my ultimate aim was to open a restaurant and tell people what to do, not cook the food.
Oh.
And then I ended up in the industry by default, because I'm not really by trade qualified as a chef. I'm a hospitality management graduate.
Oh, I see.
So I didn't graduate as a chef.
Yeah.
But I became a chef by profession.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So chef, was it something that you had desired to do from a very young age, or is
was.
it something you fell into?
It was something that I desired to do.
Sorry.
And when I spoke about my grandmother, she raised me to cook, clean, from a very young age.
Yeah.
As soon as I could reach the stove, I was cooking. We had those coal stoves, you know, those ones.
Oh yes, the ones that
Ubesamalahle.
that thing warms the whole
Yeah,
house,
the whole house,
dude.
you know. So
You don't
we
need
were
a
in this
gas
3-room. It was just
heater.
beautiful. So she was making pies from home and magwenya.
Braima stove, as kids it came. I just remembered what it's called.
No, Braima stove is the
Braima
one
stove.
with the what do you call it? Paraffin.
Isn't Braima stove the one with the coal? Oh.
The coal is a coal stove.
Oh,
Braima
like
stove
a
ke le we
Braima
light with the
stove.
blue flame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Not a
as
difference,
kids
girl. Giving you a little bit of education. Now you know the difference.
Yes, now I know. Now I know.
Yeah. So yeah, I've always, and she's always been in restaurants. She worked for Chinese restaurants. She worked for a Greek restaurant at some stage as
that's
well.
cool.
So then she started her own thing and started selling magwenya from home and pies from home and fish and chips from home. So that's how I learned and got introduced to the whole culture of cooking. And I just naturally fell into that. It was like I didn't have to look too much into what I wanted to do after school. It was almost like a natural progression.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I started doing it and I was very passionate about it. I mean, high school, I was terrible. When I say terrible, my report card, like the teachers wrote in the report that don't take maths next year. I was just a rebel without a cause. I was always making a noise in class. I was very hyper.
Oh, shucks.
So it's not that I was a stupid kid.
Yeah.
I was just a restless kid. So when I went into college and I started doing what I loved, I realized how smart I was because I ended up passing quite well, actually.
That's amazing.
Yeah, with distinctions and that sort of thing.
It baffles me that in school, when you're loud and you're outspoken, you're considered to be like a bad child.
Yeah.
Well, it's so tricky.
I don't blame them.
It's so tricky.
You know, but you know, we're different.
Yeah, I guess.
I was just very outspoken and I had a lot of energy. And I think people didn't understand that and didn't get it. And I also think maybe I also didn't get it at that time.
Oh, I see.
You know, because I was always being told to simmer down. I was like, oh, but guys,
this is me. How do I simmer myself down?
You know, and then they put you on pills, on Ritalin to try and tone you down. Your child has ADD, you know, and that's when things just started taking a turn for what I think was the worst of my childhood years.
Okay. Do you want to tell me more about that?
Yeah,
Please tell me more about like what was the worst of your childhood years? What is it that
I think
made you feel that way?
Being told that you have ADD as a child and nobody really explains it to you.
Oh, shucks.
It makes you feel like less of a person because all the other kids, when they run around,
are
it's
normal,
fine.
yeah.
And I didn't see myself as different, but then because I was told I was, I started treating myself as different.
What would you do?
And feeling different. I started isolating a lot.
Oh.
There was a lot of aggression as well that I would sense from my side towards other kids.
People, yeah.
Because I was taller than them, skinnier than them as well. I was younger because I was promoted in grade 1. I thought it was because of my height. My mom later told me that it was because I was I was gifted. They said I was too smart for the grade that I was in. But I didn't know this.
That's amazing.
I didn't know this. So I thought it was because of my height and my skinniness and my frame. And people would tease me a lot. So I immediately started getting aggressive and being
defensive,
a rebel.
Yeah.
Because the kids would tease me. The teachers were always telling me to calm down. It was just always Mamello. Like, there was always a negative kind of attention around me. Yeah, so it was tough growing up because I didn't feel like I fitted in. So I would do things that would either show that I don't care, and deep down you do, right? You do care.
We always care.
Yeah. Or things that would try and get the approval, like buying your friends friendships, you know, buying them stuff at the tuck shop, you know, buying them a straw, buying them a stock sweets, thinking that this person is actually gonna be your friend because you're buying them stuff, and it's not the way. And you aimlessly do these things thinking that it will eventually win them over, and it never does.
And you moved through like two different extremes. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you'll be
It's either
extremely
I don't care,
overcompensating or you,
or
yeah.
I really want these people to like me. And it was very frustrating. And you don't realize that it's frustrating because also you're not talking about it. So you're not
Yeah.
expressing yourself. You're not expressing how you feel to anybody.
And even to you, I
To
don't think
you,
it
you're
even
not
made
even getting
sense.
it. You're
Yeah.
not even, you're doing it, but I'm only saying it now because in hindsight I can see what I was doing. But as a kid, you don't realize
You don't.
subconsciously I'm doing this so that I can get their approval because of my issues in the
Sure.
past, or because of the issues that I have with rejection or feeling like I'm less.
And do you think with these emotions, you came with them to chef, to being the chef, like being picked at Michelangelo?
Yeah.
When you then started, you know, learning and studying during
Yeah.
that period, do you think
Yeah.
those are emotions that you then traveled with and came
Definitely.
with?
Definitely. I've always had an inferiority, and I won't say now, but I grew up with an inferiority complex, thinking that I'm not good enough,
Yeah.
and wanting to prove myself. And the hospitality industry, the chefing industry, is male dominated.
Shucks.
You know, so as a black female entering, and you are seen as a threat almost, because I entered in a leadership role. I was immediately I was probably the youngest head chef that
Wow.
I knew at the time.
Congrats, ma.
Thanks. But you know, it was tough because you can sense especially as a black woman, when there's black men,
You can sense the hostility that is just in
they
the
there, and there's almost an unspoken, you need to respect me because I'm older than you. But at the same time, I'm thinking you need to respect me because I've been placed in this position as your leader.
because I deserve it
Because
also.
I've worked hard for it and I'm clearly qualified. So let's try and reach that. But it's tough because Luana, you want to respect your
Them.
elders.
Yes.
So they play that card, knowing very well that you're a respectful young black woman. So they take advantage when you try and reprimand them. It's difficult to reprimand without being
shucks.
disrespectful. You know, so
it's like a conflict of that, and it's a conflict of your emotions
Yeah.
of wanting to please as well.
Yeah. So it was tough, and it
Sure.
started it creates such a stress, because then the people from the top are not understanding
you,
of this.
yeah.
It was usually, and I'm not trying to be racist or bring race into it, but it would usually be a white male, and he's like, but just tell them to pull their socks up.
Yeah.
You know, let them. They must perform.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, yeah, I get that, but you know, when I told him, you know, and you get anxious, you build up this anxiety before you go to work. You're thinking about scenarios in your head that might possibly happen, because now you're dealing with the males that you are working above, and then you're dealing with the males that are over you, and you need to find that balance and be the best chef that you can be, but also be a good leader without being disrespectful to your elders. You know,
And you're dealing with all of these emotions internally as well.
Internally, you're thinking you don't want to be rejected. You don't want to be rejected. You don't want to look like almost being found out to be less than. You know, that constant fear that people are going to see.
So many artists actually have that inside
Yeah.
of them. And I'd like for us to speak more about that when we come back.
Cool.
See you guys in a couple of minutes. So like from now on, I'm going to call you Princess Mamello. Because I know you've got royal blood, Baba.
Hey, and I don't feel like a princess. I don't have the bank account of one. So
I
I'm just
feel
a
you,
mere
girl.
mortal.
I feel you. So like, how were you able to like navigate through all of that? I mean, it's the emotions that you're juggling through. It's now feeling inferior,
Yeah.
in a position of superiority,
Yeah.
having to be able to delegate work,
Yeah.
and also having to be able to, you know, live up to expectation that's obviously been placed on you by the head chefs,
Right.
because they want you to deliver. So how were you able to personally work through those emotions, also deliver on the work that's expected from you,
Right.
and also then lead the team that's following you?
Yeah, I don't think, in all honesty, I was ever ready for that position. I don't think I was ready mentally,
Sure.
spiritually, and maturity-wise. I think I had not grown into a person that was ready for that kind of responsibility.
I get that.
I had not dealt with any of the issues that I had gone through as a child. I had been molested as a kid. I had been bullied as a kid, and I took all of that into my adulthood, having not even
dealt with it.
You know, my mother was very good in sending me for counseling and therapy, but because I wasn't ready to deal with it, it didn't help.
Yeah.
So I was there in the therapy sessions, but I wasn't there.
Yeah.
So when it did come, I don't think it was the right time for me to be in such a position, because I couldn't speak from a place of wisdom. I couldn't think from a place of wisdom. I wasn't rationalizing, so I started making decisions that were detrimental to my growth. And one of the things that happened was I started drinking a lot, because the anxiety was so intense that it was either after work, everybody goes for a drink just to get hammered so that we'll be able to pass out and be able to repeat the next day the 12-hour shift. You know, and eventually it escalates because you think, okay, this is comforting.
Yeah. It's dissolving all of these things that I've, you know. So like, speaking about the molestation, before we delve deeper into the drinking, I'd like to understand, like, as a child in that moment, how were you dealing with that? Like, how were you able to suppress that? You know, and while experiencing it, how were you, did you speak to your mom? Did you speak to anyone? Like, who were you in that moment? How were you dealing, and how were you navigating through that part of your life?
Yeah, I think in the beginning when it first happened, because it happened over a period of about 3 years, the sexual molestation, and it happened with 3 different family members, 2 uncles and 1 cousin. And when it happened, I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea that this is wrong.
Yeah.
So I went through most of my grade 1, 2, and 3 thinking that what happened to me was normal.
I can relate to
And
that.
it changed when we were given a talk in grade 4 about sexual abuse and where you're not supposed to be touched, and you should say no if somebody does X, Y, and Z. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah.
I was actually molested as a child. And I literally, that day I went home and I told my mother about it. I remember writing her a letter because I felt so ashamed to speak to her face to face. So I wrote her a letter. And then she obviously then, you know, wanted to speak about it. But the shame, I think that's all I can think about.
Thing.
It was just
that you
shame.
felt.
I felt shame. And from that moment, things changed, because, you know, it had happened and I was going on my own business. But the second I knew what happened to me was wrong, and what actually, like, it was actually sexual abuse.
Yeah.
I started feeling like I need to cover up. I felt like it was my fault. I had done something to make them attracted to me. So I didn't want to be in costumes.
Yeah.
I didn't want to wear short skirts. I didn't want to look like a girl, because I thought maybe that's why they did that to me. So it really played a huge role in my self-esteem. It lowered it. I mean, it already wasn't at a great place. But the second I found out, and it's weird that it happened, but then I found out that it was actually wrong. So when I knew, the second that I knew that it was wrong was when I started self-loathing.
Yeah.
You know, and it was painful. It was a painful thing to go through, but I think I started just masking it and trying to forget it.
Yeah. And when did you start then to speak about it again? When did you then pick it up again and actually start having a conversation about it?
Only later.
Okay.
Only much later, in my late teens.
Okay.
Late teens, and this is after just years of what I see as reckless decision making, irrational decision making, suicide attempts. I developed an eating disorder. I mean, I was so skinny, I had no reason to want to I was a bulimic.
Yeah.
I had no reason to lose weight, but because there were just too many things going on, and almost like an identity or existential crisis, not knowing.
I get that.
Who you are in your own body, and not understanding what's happening, and then the changes that come with puberty, and the people that tease you about your body, and the changes that come with being in high school and you're the only one that doesn't have breasts. You know, and then you're like, you're happy because then it doesn't make you attractive, but then you're also hurt because
it's such a conflict of emotions.
And the men would just call you things like Sonic the Hedgehog and Olive, and they don't realize that it hurts you, you know, and it just kept digging deeper and opening a wound that I hadn't even begun to understand what it was. So I couldn't treat it appropriately. So it was just this gaping wound that I didn't know whether I should get stitches for it, should I get antibiotics. I didn't know what to do. So I just
lived with it.
Lived with it. And I think only honestly after high school was when I started then speaking to therapists about it and talking about the impact that it had on me. And I think by then it was too late. It was too late.
Because you've grown to live with it. Like it's almost started becoming your identity. Like it started becoming a part of you, because it was almost like, okay, this is what I attract and this is what it is, and this is this is basically a part of me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
sure.
It's scary how it can be both, right? Because you want that affection and you want that attention from people, but you also don't want it because you're afraid that you're going to get hurt. You know, I remember when I was in high school, we had a party, or I think it was a disco, we call it a disco back in the day. I don't know what they call them, socials now.
Yeah.
But
back in the day, it was a disco.
Oh, standard what. Anyways.
Bash, disco.
It was a dance, okay, at school. And there was like a bunch of us playing Spin the Bottle.
Yeah.
And I remember it landing on me. And this guy looked at me. He's like, I'm not kissing that. You know, like, I was like, am I that revolting?
Yeah.
Like, that you would even call me a that?
Like that,
you
even.
know? And I remember that day really scarred me. And I started thinking that maybe if I start looking more feminine, the boys would find me attractive.
And you don't even know what more feminine is, though. Like,
I didn't. Like, I was such a tomboy growing up.
Sure.
You know, for me to even like think of wearing skirts and like what all the girls were wearing, like I couldn't bring myself to that because it wasn't me.
Do you think all of that kind of idea of what a feminine should be and what a woman should be, and this is how a woman should act, do you think that is such an imposition?
It's so
on your personal personality.
It's so
like
unnecessary.
roles, like having a role and saying a woman should be a certain way.
What is a woman and what is a beautiful woman? You know, we have this, especially these days, you know, you are bombarded with these images. You go on social media, you go and you watch TV.
Yeah.
Everybody is almost like a carbon copy of the next person. And there's nothing wrong with fitting in, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to look great and wanting to, you know, accentuate your features. Or there's nothing wrong with people that wear makeup. There's nothing wrong with people that don't. There's nothing wrong with people that want to wear weaves. There's nothing wrong with people that don't. You know, like everybody is entitled to express themselves and love themselves and express their beauty in the way that they see fit.
Sure.
You know, but because society has said this is beautiful and this is what you should look like in order for you to be taken seriously, or in order for you to be seen as a African woman. I don't know how many times I've been told that I'm not African enough.
Sure. Me too.
And I'm like,
because I'm light.
Either you're light,
I don't qualify.
Or your English isn't broken enough, or I mean, my hair hasn't always been like this. I'm unashamedly addicted to wigs because they are just so simple and
you can
easy.
throw it on
you throw
and
it on, it's already styled. It just sits there, it's ready waiting for you in the morning. When you're late, you slap it on. But that became almost like but you need to embrace
neglecting your Africanism.
So I'm like, Mara, I'm African because of my heart, not because of what I wear on the outside. I'm not African because of how I speak. African and my culture is something that I grew up with. It's something that my parents taught me. It's something that my environment exposed me to, and I chose to take certain things from, and I've made it to become the person that I am today. It has nothing to do with the fact that I bought a Duke Yago, you know, the Maasai tribe, and you know,
And that makes me more
the
African.
only thing I wear is African print clothing to weddings, and I only buy South African brands.
Yeah.
And like it's not about that. And I think people get pressurized into thinking if you don't fit into that mold, then you don't belong.
Sure.
And it's wrong. And people need to speak up about it, that
I agree.
we're all unique and we're all beautiful in our own way. Whether I'm wearing a straight weave or I'm rocking my natural hair,
I agree.
if I feel beautiful, you have no right to tell me that I'm not.
That is so strong. When we come back again in a couple of seconds, we're going to talk more about this topic. See you soon. Welcome back, guys. We're here with Mamello, Princess Mamello. We are having a delicious conversation. Speaking of delicious,
Yes.
so during culinary school then, I know that you spoke about these emotions that you're, you know, the internal battles that you're, you know, experiencing and that you're dealing with. At this point in your life, you're still in your 20s,
Yeah.
early 20s,
Early 20s.
and stuff like that. And I mean, early 20s are such a pivotal time in a young woman's life because there's so much baggage emotionally that you're bringing into this period where there's so much transition as well that's happening.
Right.
And on top of that, you had so much leadership that you needed to be doing as well, and deliverance. So tell me how, I know we spoke about, you know, the thing that would help you during this time was then alcohol.
Yeah.
Please tell me more about, you know, that part of your life and that period of your life.
Yeah, it was a what I call my BC days.
BC, what does that mean?
Before Christ.
Oh, BC. Oh, before Jesus Christ. Hallelujah.
Yeah, those were my BC days. You know,
Okay.
I haven't always been a believer. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a born again Christian now, but back then I had no belief
Yeah.
system at all.
Or spiritual
Or
practice.
spiritual
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
And I felt no connection to any kind of spiritual, you know, seeking enlightenment.
Yeah.
So it was very easy for me to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Because I was not convicted by anything.
Yeah, I get that. Wow, that's
Yeah.
strong.
I stood for nothing, so I could fall for everything, you know, that saying.
Sure.
So whenever I was faced with a bad choice, it was easy for me to just go for the wrong one because
Sure.
there was no guilt, there was no condemnation. I know the condemnation comes anyway, but there was no conviction.
Conviction.
Not condemnation, you know, conviction that maybe you should think about that. What are your principles? I had no principles. I had no morals. I thought I did, but I didn't.
Yeah.
When I think about it now, I didn't have any morals. So it was the natural thing for me to do was to drink
Yeah.
because it helped me feel better.
Yeah.
Every morning I would go to work, just push it through, looking at the time, waiting for that clock to hit,
Yeah.
that we could get out there, get drunk. It started becoming a problem when I would drink to the point where I wouldn't remember
What you
certain-
did before.
certain things
Yeah.
during the night. So it wouldn't be a complete blackout, but the next morning, do you remember that you said X, Y, and Z, or do you remember doing X, Y, and Z? And I'd be like,
Yeah.
And you know, that was an alarm bell, but Mamello didn't listen because Mamello knew best.
Yeah.
You know, Mamello was invincible. Mamello was a very reckless, almost self-sabotaging.
I get that. I can relate to that.
You know, so it didn't really bug me when I saw what was going on because the chaos kind of brought me peace because it was something that I could control.
It was on the
I'm
outside,
creating
so
it.
practically you
Yeah.
can. But
I'm creating it.
internal
Internally,
demons, you
the
can't.
demons, you can't deal with them. So you just keep drowning them. And that was my solution. So create the chaos, and then when you feel overwhelmed, you drink.
Yeah.
And eventually it became so bad that even a friend of mine, my best friend in college, Candace, told me that you've got a problem. You need to tone it down. We get concerned about you when you drink. And she was also in college with me. And, you know, I laughed it off. But I think a few months later, I realized when I got suicidal that she's right, that I do actually have a problem. Back then, I didn't think it was alcoholism. because you get told about alcoholics and
Yeah.
you see them drinking out of a brown paper bag.
Yeah.
They're living on the streets.
There's an image that comes with
There's
it.
a certain image,
and you don't
I'm
see
not,
yourself
no.
as
I was in hotel school and I graduated top of my class, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I dressed well. I was making my own money.
Yeah.
That's not me.
Sure.
I might have a few drinks too many, but
it doesn't mean I'm an the ideal alcoholic that you guys say.
And it spun out of control to the point where I was out with friends and I got so drunk that one of them said, "I've got something that will help you
Sure.
sober up." And I was introduced to cocaine.
Yeah.
And it sobered me up. It gave me confidence. I was like, this is great. So I can drink, forget my problems, but then also be sober enough to function.
Hectic.
What a lethal combination.
Yeah.
And you don't think that, actually, mommy, this is bad. This is not the way a person deals with life. I did not
You didn't have that.
Didn't have that. I had nothing to compare against, because life had always been chaotic. So I had there was no plumb line that I could judge against. That no, but you are able to do this. It's always just been, well, you don't deserve much anyway.
Yeah.
So this is your life. So just accept
Sure.
it. And
seeing other people that are living, great lives and are happy, you don't think it's a real thing because you've never ever experienced it.
No.
Sure.
And I never told anybody about it because I thought it was just me. I've always felt that it was just me specifically. I had this crazy belief before I found, and I think even after I found Christ, that I was put on this earth to be an example. And as crazy as it sounds, I was convinced that God created me so that I can experience bad things, so I can tell people about the bad things so that I can help them. And I honestly, genuinely believe that. And I started developing a resentment towards God because those bad things kept happening. I wasn't just molested, I was raped. So I was like, why does this have to keep happening? Why is it why is it a thread with the sexual molestation and the sexual abuse? The whole eating disorder thing, the suicide attempts. And all of them were decisions that I made, minus the rapes, but choosing to fall into alcoholism, choosing to become bulimic, choosing to take your own life. Those were all decisions that I made, but I felt strongly in my heart that it was because I was put on this earth to suffer. And that I didn't deserve a good life. I didn't deserve happiness. My life was just purely meant to be chaotic. And I would find periods and God will give me a break and I'll find happiness, but then it gets snatched away. And for a very long time I grew up and into my 30s. I mean, I'm 34 now, but...
You don't look it, hey? Like, you look like you're like 25.
Stop.
Girl.
Stop, girl. Stop.
Shoo.
But yeah, it's been a rough road and it's been a long road, because I think not speaking about these things has made me a prisoner of my own thoughts.
But when did you then find Christ, and when did you find your spiritual practice? Like in amidst all of that chaos, and then having to then, discover a new friend, which is cocaine.
Yeah.
When then in that period of having to have gone through your relationship with cocaine, when then did you then realize, okay, I need to now go to church, I need to actually start considering doing a spiritual practice. When we come back in a little bit, I feel like maybe you should delve deeper into that process of change, in that moment. See you guys in a couple of seconds. So, Mommy, your relationship with drugs.
Yeah.
How were you able to navigate through that, and when was the time where you then got your spiritual awakening and you met God?
So it was a long journey. I'm not gonna try and downplay it and make
Yeah.
it seem like it was something that happened overnight. There were battles, there were interventions from family members. I had been to a treatment facility and later then relapsed after a year.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an easy road, but I wanted to leave.
That was the difference.
That was the difference, and I always knew that I could. And I think after the relapse happened, I just became so hard on myself, and I was so judgmental,
Yeah.
and I condemned myself. I was just I just it was a betrayal to
Yeah.
myself, and I felt so sick that I decided to take my own life yet again. If I can tell you how many times I've attempted
Shucks,
suicide.
mommy.
Because I just thought that the world would be a better place
Without
me
you.
in it. You know, and I think a lot of people don't realize, they say suicide is such a selfish thing.
It's not.
And
it's not easy. They
not
think it's the easy way out as
And
well.
when you're in such a dark place that the only thing that you can think about is death, and the only thing you can think about is how happy people in your life would be without you because of the pain that you've caused.
And you're no longer a burden to
I'm
them.
no longer a burden, and that was all I had in my head.
Sure.
You know, so I decided to take my life, and it was an attempt that I planned. I researched the poison to make sure that I don't wake up in hospital.
Sure.
I went to Hillbrow, like some dingy place, to buy this poison. 2-step. It kills. Like they use it for. It was a pesticide,
Yeah.
and they use it now to kill animals
My goodness.
on farms so that they can, rob the farmers. So I took this poison, and long story short, that's when I found God, because I had a spiritual awakening.
Wow.
In a hospital bed. And one of the things that happened during that time in hospital was what I believe was God showing me the pain. And when I say showing me, not showing me my mother from a distance, he gave me the pain that my mom felt when she found out that her daughter had passed. And, I don't share the story with a lot of people because I think a lot of people don't understand it in terms of how God speaks to you. And especially because I was never a believer.
Yeah.
So that was the first encounter I had spiritually.
Yeah. And you didn't understand,
I didn't understand
like
what
that
is
was.
going on. So for me, there was no question of it's this or that. It was what it was. It was
Sure.
God talking to me, and I knew it at that moment that it was God saying that there is more that I have in store for you. I have a plan and I have a purpose for you. And he revealed himself to me, and ever since then, and it was in 2010 that it happened, 2010, and I have never looked back. I've never doubted the existence of God ever since that day. It hasn't been an easy road.
Yeah, obviously.
But it has made things make more sense in life since then. Because he's just so good and he's so faithful. And if you just, the second you open your heart to him and the second you accept him as your Lord and your Savior, he brings this peace. And that day I felt a peace come over me. And like I said, it hasn't been an easy road. There have been ups and there have been downs. But the day that I found Christ, my life changed for the better.
Sure. It's almost like when you explained it to me, it's almost like he then showed you who you really are. Because I feel like for the longest time, you were battling with your identity, your image, and who you were as a person. It didn't make sense to you, and you couldn't be able to express who you are because you didn't know who you were.
No.
And it's like when you had that encounter with him, it's like he was like this is who you are. And now, even though it's not easy, even though you're still struggling, even though you're still fighting through things, but at least now you know who you are.
Yeah, and whose I am.
Whose you are.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because before it was almost like, you know, you live a life as a princess.
Yeah.
But you don't actually know that your father is a king.
Yeah.
And you don't know what he's capable of.
Sure.
You know, the authority that he has. You know, you always hear people talking about, no, just leave it in God's hands. And I'd be like,
what?
And like,
what do you mean?
Like, I'm a realist, okay? Like, you need to do your own stuff because God's not just going to come down and fix your problems. Like, it doesn't work like that. You know, but when you understand that if you have the mentality of a princess or of a queen, you start living like one and you start wanting to please the king that rules you. And when you love someone, when you love something, you'll do everything in your power to make sure that they're happy. And you won't do anything that will upset them, that will hurt them. Yes, we do. Like, and I've always had this debate about when you love someone, you don't hurt them. That's when you need to reboot, because love is not a word or an action. It's how you show it in your works. If I respect you, if I show you that you can trust me, if I'm honest with you, if I'm caring, if I'm compassionate towards you, that's me showing you love.
And the consistency in that.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes we'll falter,
Yeah,
and we fall back and you're like, oh, but you don't love God. It's like, no, I just didn't show love at that moment in the action or the decision that I chose. It doesn't mean I love you any less. It means I made a mistake. But I'll continue to try
my best
to prove, and not that God wants us to prove ourselves, but because I love you, I want you to know that I love you. So I will treat you in a way that shows love. You know.
Sure. So like, I know that okay, so then you know, started getting into this. You received such a beautiful revelation and such a blessing at that you were able to encounter him, to be able to make that decision to get into a relationship with God. And so what I want to know though is, while now you're in this different space and different atmosphere and different way of life, please take me through the ups and downs. Take me through the, you know, the wrestling of, because, you know, even if you get into this different space and mindset, you still wrestle with that idea. You still wrestle with, is it really, really, really true? Like, I mean, this happened to me, God, like, really though, you know, like, take me through those situations, and also trying to steal yourself away from your past and trying to steal yourself away from what used to be your reality and what made sense to you at the time. Take me through that process in terms of those hurdles and those ups and downs.
And those hurdles, when they come,
they hit you strong. Like, and they still happen till today. They don't stop.
They don't stop. If anything, they get worse. Because
you're becoming a stronger person. Yeah.
So it just, I think one of the things that I've held on to is remembering that, and it's hard, hey, because as I'm saying this, I'm like, be careful now, don't be a hypocrite, because
don't lie, girl.
You know very well that yesterday you were saying to yourself that
self.
Yes. So you have to constantly remind yourself of how powerful you are.
Sure.
But that power is nothing without the power of God.
Wow.
And I think my biggest problem, or my biggest character defect, is I think I can do everything in my own strength. And when I say that, it's not even a matter of faith. Even if you remove God from it, the God element, everything in general, I think I can run marathons by myself. I think I can like lift heavy things. Like I never want to ask for help because I don't want to look like a failure.
I'm the same as you,
you know,
in that regard.
So it becomes it's a self-sabotage, because you're setting yourself up for failure when you think you can do anything by yourself. I mean, there are certain things, yes, of course, we can do by ourselves, but most things in life, we need either the guidance of somebody wise. We definitely need God. We need our friends. We can't just go through life thinking that everything just revolves
around you.
And it's almost like arrogant.
It
and
really
it's
is so
childish.
arrogant, and it's ego all the way.
You know?
Ego all the way.
So I think I've stumbled a lot with regards to that. I've stumbled on my own self, because then I start trying to take power slowly, and when I don't have power or I don't have control over something, it frustrates me. And that frustration leads to an anxiety.
Girl,
and that
I
anxiety
can relate
leads,
to you on so
you know
many.
what I'm saying? And then it just becomes, then you start catastrophizing
right there
things in your
with
head.
you.
And then you form scenarios in your head. And then it becomes like one big
I
crazy
am right there with you.
thing that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not even there.
It's not even there. But because you've made this mini little micro
Into
organism of like reality in your own little head, and you've watered that bacteria, and it's just growing and it's infesting your life, because you've now developed a belief system that either people can't help you now because it's too late, you're too far in, so you're going to keep trying to fix it, and you're not going to say anything because now people are going to be like, why didn't you ask for help to begin with? Why didn't you say anything? So then you just keep imploding.
Sure.
And allowing these things to eat you up. And I literally say this with like such joy in my heart. I only found this out this year.
Sure.
And I'm only learning now. I'm 34. I'm only learning this year that speaking and talking and asking and reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness. And it's not a sign of failure. You're reaching out to people that, even if they don't help you, when you speak about these things, you realize that it's not as bad as you thought it was.
Yeah, it isn't.
And the anxiety reduces almost instantaneously.
You're so right.
And I've been just thinking that life can't be that way.
Easy,
it's not that simple. You could just talk and then everything's fixed. You need to talk.
Sure. I'd like, when we come back, for you to just, delve deeper into that, because I think it's so important, and especially, like, I'm also still learning that, and I keep on failing at that. The moment I always think that it makes sense, and I know now that actually I need to stop assuming things. It's difficult for me to practically stop assuming things. There's tomorrow. Once I've decided today, I'm not going to assume things. Tomorrow, I'm assuming things, and my anxiety levels go up. So I'd like for us to have more of a conversation on that topic. So I'll see you guys in a couple of seconds. Yeah, so like, so while you're navigating through these, inconsistencies, I mean, as humans, we're so inconsistent, and we're so flawed. How are you able to still pursue and still have hope in a perfect love with God, or even still pursue a better you and pursue a better version of yourself? How are you able to rise up from the folds and still have the hope and the courage to step out and become a better version of yourself?
I think realizing, like I said, whose I am. I honestly believe that I am destined for greatness. And I believe when the Word of God says that we are more than conquerors. And I think I become so hard on myself when I have those doubts. And I'm like, oh, but you're not, why are you, like, you don't believe? Why are you not, your faith isn't strong enough? It's because you're not reading your Bible enough. It's because you're not immersed in the Word of God enough. You didn't do your praise and worship last night.
But what is enough?
What is enough?
Yeah.
Yeah. But just that constant reminder, and I think we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves. We're our worst enemies. Our worst enemies, because we have fans out there, people that believe in us and encourage us daily. And then the second we get home, like, yeah, but she didn't mean it.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't really like, yeah, she said it because.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and then we start, instead of saying, oh, wow, thank you, and actually
Relishing in
receiving
that,
and
yeah.
relishing it and realizing that you actually are an incredible human being.
Sure.
You're not perfect and you never will be, but you can strive for perfection and you can strive for excellence. And that's all we can actually do is keep trying. And one thing I know I am is I'm stubborn and I'm resilient. Those two things, I have such a fighting spirit.
Yeah.
And it's almost annoying. Sometimes I even annoy myself because I'll be one of those people that like, no, just try it again. Try it again. I promise you this time.
There's a win somewhere
There's
here.
a win. Like, I never give up. As hard as it gets, I always find that fight. As small as it is, eventually you start believing in the little steps that you take. And one thing I've learned recently is that just for today, you do your best. Just for today, you're sober.
That is so strong.
Just for today, you're not going to touch a drink. Just for today, you got up, you went to work, you gave your best. Just for today, you didn't fight with your mom. Just for today, because we're so focused on tomorrow and the past that we don't realize the accomplishments that we make today. And today I'm in a place where I'm at spiritually, mentally, physically, everything combined, because I started accepting that it's just about today. Tomorrow.
I love that so much.
You know, and you know, we hear it in the Bible and they say, yeah, dude, tomorrow has enough worries of its own.
worried us,
You're like,
yeah,
that sounds great, hey? If only you knew that I've got bills to pay. You're like, but how is that going to change
your today?
your today? What are you doing today to better yourself? Yes, the past happened. So now are you going to keep reminding yourself that you're a failure?
Sure.
And that you've relapsed 3 times? And that you've been to rehab? And that you are
Attempted
34 years old,
suicide.
you've attempted suicide, you're still not married, you don't have kids. Like, are you going to look at that, or are you going to look at the fact that today you're a conqueror? Today you're in a good space. You have a great relationship with God. You have a great boyfriend. You have a great family. Like, there are so many things that we can be grateful for, even if they create stress. You know, I have a very strained relationship with my mother. I love her dearly and I have a lot of respect for her, but she's also hurt. You know, she's hurt and she's scared because of the past, because of the pain that I've caused her. So there's friction, you know, and I can sense her fear.
Yeah.
So it makes me anxious. So when we engage, it's almost like we're walking on eggshells around each other, because we don't want to have to hurt the other one, but we're trying to find our way to each other. And it started affecting me negatively because I just kept thinking, why can't me and my mother just go back to where I was when I was a kid?
Yeah.
And we were close. And God said to me, but if I take you back to there, the growth would be gone.
Yeah.
Where you're at spiritually and mentally would be gone. You wouldn't be the person that you are today. So you wouldn't be ready for that.
Yeah.
You have grown into a person. As many times as you've fallen, you've risen. And you can help her heal now.
Sure.
You know, and I'm hopeful that everything that I've put her through and everything that I've experienced and all the pain that I've caused her and everything that she's seen me go through wasn't in vain. You know, and I've always hated it when people say everything happens for a reason, because I'm like, how can you say that? Then what has a baby ever done to be
And
killed
everything,
or
yeah.
whatever? And as much as those bad things happen and nobody deserves them, especially children and you know, being raped and that sort of thing, you don't ask for those types of things. But what we take from those experiences and how we allow them to shape us moving forward is how we can use it to glorify God. You know, and we were talking earlier about how speaking about our testimonies sometimes is frowned upon by mainly society, mainly the black people in terms of culture.
Men and women.
You know?
Yeah.
And speaking about your problems is one thing, but speaking about how you've overcome them,
It's a completely
that's where the
different
power
thing,
comes
yeah.
in. Because it's one thing to rant and rave and say, oh, I was raped, oh, I was this. What are you doing with that? Are you trying to gain pity? Is it a pity party? Are you playing the victim? Or are you taking that and making yourself a victor? And by being victorious and unashamed of what's happened, not to say that you don't feel bad for the wrong that you've caused, that you've done, even if you haven't done anything wrong, it's to say that you are oblivious
Yeah.
to the pain that it's caused. But taking that and making it a testimony and helping other people, I think, is the greatest form of honor and serving that you can ever give to God and to any other human being. Because we weren't created to be islands, man.
No.
We were created to be a community that helps each other. We were created to speak up about things that are important to us. We were created to be convicted when we see things wrong. And that conviction shouldn't just stop at saying, yeah, no, I'm against it. What are you going to do about it?
Exactly.
Are you willing to stand up for it? Because don't say that you are convicted and it's a conviction for you if you're not willing, when push comes to shove,
That
and
you
I say,
stand
let's
up
go.
for it. Yeah.
Let's stand up. Oh, but my boss might see that. I don't know if I really want to be seen in that kind of image. It's not about that. We can't be selfish and think that our information is ours to keep.
Yeah.
Because life just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It really doesn't, and you don't know who you could affect and whose life you could touch.
And in the same light, you are allowed to be patient enough with yourself to go through the process of dealing with it, to be able to share it. Because I feel like in as much as there are people that are afraid to share, there are people that feel the need to share, but they don't quite know how to do it yet, because they feel it doesn't make sense to them what happened. To them, it's still traumatic. To them, it's still like fresh. To them, it's still like, oh my God, this happened to me. And how do I say that this happened to me? And you're allowed to go through that process of making sense of it in however way it makes sense to you, but you're allowed to go through that. Because for me, like you said, there was a point that when you spoke about your molestation and you spoke about like you didn't realize what happened to you. There's so many women today, like even today, I only recently found out the meaning of sexual abuse in a workplace. Like I didn't know if a guy says this, it's wrong.
It's wrong.
I didn't know that if this guy touches me on my shoulder, it's wrong. Like I didn't know that. And I didn't know there were things like even financial abuse. If somebody holds money back from you because you're not doing 1, 2, 3 is wrong, Right. I think the importance of those conversations as well is so important. But having learned those conversations while going through that, I think it's important that you take your time in understanding it yourself, so that when you do share it, whatever retaliation that comes, it doesn't, kill you as a person, kill your soul, your spirit, and you start from scratch.
Yeah, you're speaking from a place of wisdom.
Yes.
Right?
Of maturity.
Because you've come to understand the
Exactly.
situation. You've come to almost come full circle.
Exactly.
So it did happen, but I'm not broken. I'm not
I
speaking
recognize
to you
it,
as a broken person. I've overcome it.
Yes.
And it might still hurt, but I know how to deal with it.
I might still cry when I share about it, but it no longer has its power over me.
It doesn't hold me hostage anymore. And I think that's what's important, is that we get a lot of people that rant and they rave on social media about these things happening, and it breaks my heart when you see pictures of a woman saying, this is a picture of me the night after my boyfriend hurt me. If you know him, report him, police, blah, blah, blah. And you're exposing yourself because you're not speaking from a place of healing. And
it's from a place of anger.
And you're inviting people to fuel that anger. You're inviting people to keep you in that dark space.
It's important for us to talk about that also, Mami.
Yeah.
Like, when do we know that we've reached a place of being able to share? Because we don't quite know. Like, we've experienced maybe being physically abused. We've experienced it maybe being raped. When do we know that when I speak about it now, it's not gonna rob me, and I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna regret, the sharing, and I'm not speaking from a place of resentment and anger.
Yeah.
Do you know when we know?
I think, when you reached out to me and asked me to have this conversation with me, that's what I asked myself, that very
Sure.
question. And I reached out to my boyfriend and I asked him and I said, I don't know if it's such a good idea to speak about my life so soon after I've been going through it.
Yeah.
I mean, last year I was raped,
Yes.
and you know this. So
Yes.
it was almost like an immediate no.
Yes.
It's too soon.
Yeah.
And I said, but when will it be the right time? Because you are in a good space. You can think about it and not break down. You've dealt with it. You've gone for counseling. You've gone for therapy. Why are you still holding yourself like a meek little lamb? Why are you still treating yourself in that way when you've graduated from that and you've started taking the steps to finding your strength again, and you're living like a lioness, and you might still be a baby cub lioness, but you're getting there, right? So don't look at yourself like a little lamb and meek, because that's done.
Sure.
And I think I found that I was ready to talk about it when it didn't evoke fear or anger. So it's a tough one because sometimes you still feel, when I think about my past, sometimes when I think about the abuse, I do get those feelings of anxiety. And I do sometimes get emotional and I get teary. But it doesn't mean that I'm not healing. Because what happened was wrong. It was a violation. Right?
You're just grieving.
I'm grieving. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. People are told that it's okay. You can still cry 5 years after your husband has passed away. Why can I not once in a while? The second I cry, oh Lord, okay, things are going to fall apart now because she's now going to regress. She's going to go back into
It's
her
late
depression.
for us, yeah.
No, it's okay not to be okay sometimes. And I
Yes.
think people don't realize that.
Yes.
They think the second you start showing any form of emotion that relates back to that traumatic
It's
period,
late. Done.
it's done. Now we have to start again.
Yeah.
All the progress has been lost. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with being unsure.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I think essentially I just felt a peace about it.
Sure.
I knew that I was able to speak from a place of I'm not an expert, but I've found my groove. And I'm learning to trust that God has guided me enough, and He's healed me enough. It is finished.
Yes.
Yes. And Easter was such a profound time in my life. I think this Easter has been one of the most memorable ones for me because
I'd like for us to speak about that when we come back.
Cool.
In a couple of seconds, girls.
Cool.
And men. I know that you're talking about the period over Easter. Why was that moment so special for you?
It was pivotal for me because I think, and I said I'm 34 and only now am I learning to let go and to speak up about my issues. But I also learned that I can't serve God if I'm half-heartedly giving Him my heart and half-heartedly saying, I believe, but, certain things I need to take control over. And I went into the services expectant, and I opened my mind in terms of me being stubborn and almost, I'm a very black and white I don't do gray areas very well. Actually, I don't do gray areas. Like, they really give me anxiety.
The heebie-jeebies.
Like, I'm just like, it is what it is. And, you know, and I think it becomes quite rigid, but it works. So when people start telling me about the word and then they start twisting it, I'm like, but the Bible says X, and then you trying to tell me that it's okay for us to do Z. It doesn't work like that. Where are we? And I started becoming resentful towards the church, and I started like thinking about, oh, then why do we celebrate Easter? Why do we have Easter eggs at church? It has nothing to do, like Easter eggs have nothing to do with the resurrection of Christ. And then you're going into church with this like
standoffish
mentality. And this time around, this Easter, I was like, you know what?
It's like you're questioning the wrong
The
things.
wrong thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about Jesus in church. Don't look at what they're handing out after the service.
What is it doing to you?
Why are you focusing on that? So I went in and I said, you know what, I'm just going to be expectant. I'm going to be a congregant today. I'm not going to look at anything else but the word.
Yeah.
And I started hearing things. I mean, you know how the services go. It's the same message every year.
Yeah.
He delivers it beautifully, but it's different every year.
A different revelation every year, yeah.
And this time around, I heard the theme was Tetelestai. It is finished. And when he said it is finished, he meant it. And who are you
to question
that he meant it when it is written that it is finished? So when all time you want to just remind yourself about your failures, you want to remind yourself about your past and your character defects. There's nothing wrong with growth and wanting to work on your imperfections, but don't hold yourself hostage to them. And I kept doing that over and over again. I'd beat myself up over my past and beat myself up over how I've hurt people and how I've disappointed my family. And that kept bringing it, I kept regressing because I'd remind myself, and then reminding myself would make me self-loathing would then just leave you in this depression. And that leads to relapse.
Yeah, it does.
You know, relapse, whether it's of a drink or a mental relapse, a spiritual relapse, it just takes you back 10,000 steps because you keep reminding yourself of what God has already finished. You know? And whether you're Christian or not, whether you're spiritual or not, your past is your past. There's nothing that you can do to change it. There's nothing that you can do to make yourself sort of go back and do things differently. It's not possible. We're not time travelers. The only thing that we can change is today. We can't even change tomorrow.
You can't. You don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's happening
tomorrow. You know, so that message for me, and it's so weird because 2 years ago, I got a tattoo on my side and on my ribcage saying Tetelestai.
Oh shucks, it's finished.
It's finished. Then there I am living my life, you know. The past. Oh, I'm such a failure. And it's there, right? Like every morning you shower, you're putting cream over Tetelestai. Oh, I'm such a Christian. Look at me with my Christian tattoos. Like, what are you doing?
Sure.
You know? And you mentioned such a beautiful thing that I'm actually going to hold on to about when we post scriptures and when we post about God. Something that he reveals to us in the intimacy of our space with him. And he wants us to grow in that and learn something from that. And then we're like, the Lord said, this is the day.
This is what you must do.
Made. And, you know, like instead of actually just
relishing and growing
in that word and owning it and then speak from a place of understanding. You know? So it's amazing how these conversations and the conversations that you have with people make you realize what a fool sometimes you are.
You are, because you go, hey? You go.
No, dumb. You know? Like, I've got a huge tattoo on my back. It says believe. It's huge. Like, you can't miss it.
But sometimes it's hard. You're just like,
Mamello, you say believe. Like,
what does that mean to you?
Are you believing every day that God has healed you? Are you believing? And, you know, going through like being depressed and being diagnosed as bipolar and that sort of thing, you know, you can easily get lost in the diagnosis and think that this is your life sentence and this is as far as you'll come. But you don't believe, if you don't believe that you've actually been healed. Yes, people that have cancer have the cancer and they go for treatment, right? But how they go through that cancer and the treatment is pivotal, because you get one person. I mean, there's a woman, she's a beast. Like, she's a warrior queen. She comes to church and you wouldn't think that she had been to chemo the previous day. And then you see somebody else that comes or doesn't even come to church, and they're sitting in their bed and they're posting, saying, oh, it's another operation. You know, it's how you attack the situation and how you attack that trial or that tribulation and that belief. And if you don't believe it and you're just blabbing it for the sake of being seen.
Motives. Like, I think it's so important, like when it comes to even sharing things or talking about things, I think before sharing or talking about things, you need to look within yourself and see, where are your motives? What are the reasons of why am I sharing it? Am I sharing it to hurt that next person that did this to me? Or am I sharing it from a place of healing? Am I sharing it from a place where it no longer dominates me or it no longer holds power? Am I sharing it because I genuinely want to share it? Or am I sharing it because I want pity? I want glorification. I want people to say, wow, Linda, you're so strong for doing that.
Exactly.
Or do I want, oh, Linda, so sorry that, or do I just want to share it?
I'm sharing it for the sake of sharing
I'm sharing, and also even not even sharing it, maybe it's selfish of me to say this, but not even sharing it for the better of another person, because I think there's so much pressure when it comes with that, because you lose so much of yourself when doing that as well, you know. It's so important that when you do decide to share things, I think for people that want to share things in the future, it's so important that you look at your motives, look at why you're sharing it, look at, because I want to share it. I'm at a place where I feel like I want to start talking about it. I haven't been talking about it for a very, very long time. It's even with racial issues, like, why are we sharing? We need to be aware of, are we sharing it because we want to inflict the other person that is white, or are we sharing it because we want awareness? 100%. It's important for us to share it because ignorant people that are not of color need to know when this is being said this way, or when this is being done this way. It's important. It makes another person feel inferior. It's important we look and analyze our motives when sharing,
being
anything.
Intentional thinkers.
Yes.
Being intentional
100%.
doers.
100%.
It's so important. Like, do things intentionally.
Intentionally. Be intentional about everything that you do.
And that's a reminder that we have to
always remember, because there are times where I will speak out of not even looking at my motives. I will speak out of anger. I will speak out of spite. I will speak out of sadness. I will speak out of emotions and wouldn't even care for how the next person would react or respond to my emotions or how I feel in that moment. And it's so wrong.
I think we need to be relentless seekers of wisdom, and we need to be relentless seekers of doing the next right thing. And if we do that and we constantly remind ourselves daily of the why behind
the do,
it becomes easier, because we can get so lost in just the
very quick
that hamster wheel.
Yes.
And you just do things out of habit. Oh, I didn't post today, I must post something about God. Quickly look for scripture. Why scriptures?
Or else people are going to forget happiness. I'm Christian.
You know what
enough,
I mean? Why are you doing that? And that's when things just fall on the wrong ears, and then you're also doing it out of obligation.
And you lose track of who you are.
You lose the beauty of community.
Sure. Like, when you come back from the break, I think it's important for you to just, close it down for us and just, speak to us and tell us, you know, today, you know, today having to stand, you know, having to have spiritually grown as you have, and having to stand as the woman that you are today, emotionally, you know, you're stronger than what you were, you know, before, having to speak from that place and telling us that it's possible for the next person dealing with the same situations, you know. I'd like for us to just, for you to just close it down for us in that aspect, and just share with us, you know, although you fall, I think there's, like, you are resilient, like what you said. I absolutely have seen that from you for the many years I've known you, you know, and the many, you know, the many couple of years where, you know, the early stages of knowing you, I would see you from a distance, and I would see the resilience in you, you know, and I would see the fight in you, and I haven't even like interacted with you, you know, and when I engaged with you, your language, the way you spoke, the way you held yourself, and this was very shortly after you've gotten your revelation with God, it was like such a breath of fresh air, because there was such an honesty and integrity in you, and authenticity in you. Nothing was forced. Everything was just very natural in you, and I feel it important for humans to be able to be that way, because there's so much pretense in society, so much put on in Christianity, so much put on in reality. Everywhere we look, there's just so much, you know, put on. How I would like for you to close it down for us. How are we able to relish in being natural, being authentic, being ourselves, and embracing that, you know? That's just what I'd like for us to talk about when we come back. So see you guys in a couple of seconds. So if you can just wrap it up for us, whatever last thoughts you have, and something, maybe if you were your younger self, you know, and or you were a person, you know, looking and watching, what are the things that you wish, you know, the person you're watching would have said to you? And what are the conversations and what are the words you wish you could have received at an earlier stage in your life, you know? Or even now, let's say there's, you know, a woman going through what you went through.
Right.
What are the words you think you would have wanted to hear when you were in the situations that you were in?
Main ones are, don't ever hold yourself hostage to your past.
Sure.
Speak up even when you think it's irrelevant, even when you think it's ridiculous, even when you think it's insignificant. Speak up. One of the major things that I feel society lacks are positive relationship goals.
Sure.
And I took a screen grab of a friend's status that said, everybody's worried about Chloe and I don't know who the boyfriend is, and them breaking up and whatnot, and you're calling them couple goals when Mary and Joseph should be your couple goals. It doesn't have to be a biblical figure. My father is an atheist, and I've known him my entire life, my stepfather, but I call him my dad.
Yes.
He's basically been like my biological father. He raised me, he's taught me everything. He's loved me and my mom and my sister like, you know, we're his own.
Yeah.
And one of the things I appreciate about him is he lives by good principles.
Sure.
And he's taught me how a man should love and respect a woman. And I've seen it in everything that he does and how he honors her as a wife.
Sure.
You know, and he pursued her. He proposed, I don't know how many times. Apparently she said no. And she said something along the lines of, you need to give me 7 good reasons or something.
Yeah, because your mom is a flame though. Like,
dude,
people don't understand.
Yeah,
like,
no.
this Mamello's mom is a flame. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
She's fire.
Hey. And yeah, so, you know, so seeing that gave me hope, and I think it saved me because of the bad choices.
It did save you.
Yeah,
it did.
Saved me. Like, I don't know what I would have done had I not experienced the love that my dad shows, not just to my mom, but to us.
Yeah.
The way he treated us, I think I would have been singing a different
Yeah.
song today.
Yeah.
Because seeing that made me realize that that's what I deserve. And I was saying that we don't have enough good couple goals in today's society because women settle. You know, I hear it so often, the side chick or makwapeni, it's become a norm. People think it's okay to have a side chick. If anything, when you don't have one, you're seen as
A
like,
failure.
why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's sad because these women chase either a wedding, not marriage. They're chasing a wedding, they're chasing the life that they'll get after the wedding. You know, the Instagram perfect picture, perfect put together in a box family. And it's not like that. There will be challenges and there will be hardships and you have to work at a relationship. And I think people just want a quick fix. When they start seeing things get rough in a relationship, bye. I'm a strong, independent woman. I don't need you in my life. You don't realize that actually, yes, you're a strong, independent woman, but are you living by God's principles? Are you willing to stand by your man and fight for the relationship? You know, are you willing to stand up for love in a, not just in a like, it's not a facade. Love isn't about your holidays to Cape Town and hashtag beluga, hashtag the grand. You know, it's about the quiet, intimate moments that you share with your partner.
Yeah.
And even when you're fighting,
Yeah.
you realize that this person loves me. And you don't doubt that for 1 second. And you'll never find that if you're not willing to work on that love relationship.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm glad I was told that. So it's not something that I wish I was told. I was exposed to it. And I grew up not wanting to settle because we settle so quickly for just
we really do, as black women, yeah. And as women in general,
and you think,
actually,
no, I'm going to hold on to this guy.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when next I'm going to be. I'm 33, I'm, you know,
exactly.
single. The next boyfriend I get, that's the one. And then you accept his bad treatment.
Sure.
He doesn't pursue you. Even after he's gotten you, a man needs to constantly pursue you.
Yes.
It doesn't end after you guys all rajola and no sharp, you know. No, it's a constant pursuit, and he 100%. Needs to empower you. He needs to grow you. He needs to make you want to be better. And if you're not growing in a relationship with anybody, especially a man, this is going to be somebody that's going to impart on your kids.
Yeah.
So what are your kids going to grow up seeing? If you can't do that in a boyfriend-girlfriend situation, how do you think it's going to change? It's not going to change after a white wedding. Mahadi is not going to change that. You guys need to start growing as a couple before marriage even gets spoken of. Because if you can't respect each other at that level and love each other and be willing to work towards one goal, I know then you guys are fighting a losing battle.
Sure.
So I think it's very important that you love, hey, you know, love yourself first before you think, oh, you complete me. No, he doesn't complete you. God said the two shall become one, not the halves shall become a whole. You know? He doesn't say that. He doesn't say that you need to find somebody that will complete you. The ones will become a whole. You need to be fulfilled within yourself first before you can even attempt to love on another 100%. Human being. And if you don't love yourself, how do you expect somebody else to love you back?
Sure.
You know, and it's for me what I've taken from life in general when it comes to love is that it's not a romantic thing.
We romanticize it so much. And we don't even speak about like the fights and the, you know, I think robbing, you know, of the honesty and the integrity of, like, I feel like it's important that to be as honest as possible in a relationship. And I think
100%.
we romanticize so much that when the real things happen, where you disagree on things, you're like, okay, we're different people.
Exactly.
And yes, you are different
You are
people.
different
This is
people.
why you got together. You need to be able to embrace that,
The differences,
and find some sameness at an agreement at some point.
yeah, it's crucial.
Yeah.
It's crucial, and you know
Yeah.
that also just stems out into life itself. You know, the anxieties
Yeah.
that you face in the workplace,
In friendships.
in friendships. You know,
Mm.
when you don't learn to love and accept others and learn to show grace.
That's
know?
such a pivotal one.
Grace is huge.
Such a pivotal
Grace
one.
when it comes to the workplace especially. You know, you'll be dealing with
So pivotal.
with people that need grace. And you need grace.
You need grace.
You know, because somebody that irritates you, there's somebody out there that you
Irritate.
that you irritate. You get on somebody else's nerve. You know, you can't always be focused on
100%.
you know, my boss, this, that, and you're like, yeah, but there's
What did you
somebody
do to
out there.
contribute?
Yeah, somebody out there. Look at what you've done.
Yeah.
Always look at what you've done, and also look at the person's intentions. You know, my boyfriend mentioned something that I will never ever forget, and it's intentions. Because I always say, please, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So don't tell me about intentions. He's like, no, but you do need to look at intentions, because if you know what a person's heart is, then you see why they do certain things, and you start looking at things from their perspective, and it makes you less anxious and less frustrated, because you're not thinking, this person is actually just out to get me.
It's not based on assumptions. It's
not
now
based on
based on its intentions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, your boss might
That
be
is so good.
You know, they might have their flaws just like everybody else does, but you guys have a common goal, and the second you start focusing on the good things that you guys can grow, instead of constantly growing the weaknesses and fueling the weaknesses, you just, it eventually becomes like a cesspool of negativity, because you're not focusing on what you can grow, you're focusing on
the things you can't.
You know, and you know, when there's this analogy that if you look good at something, let's say you're about 60 to 70% good at it, and then there's something that you're about 80% good at. I'd rather work on the 80% because I can always get to 90 or 100. The 60, the maximum it can really get to is probably about 80. So leave the weakness and focus on the strength. You know, people always say, find the weaknesses and work on them. It's almost like you're putting so much positive energy into something that can never really reach its maximum potential, instead of focusing on the strengths that can flourish. And then once those are dealt with, then maybe
you can consider
dealing with the things that are so insignificant.
That's so powerful.
Because our weaknesses are just that, right?
Yeah.
They're not our kryptonite.
Yeah.
It's just something that we're not as good at as something or somebody else.
Sure.
You know?
I could speak with you like the whole day.
Same.
Like forever and ever.
Also,
and
I feel like this conversation shouldn't end.
I also don't want it to end. Do you guys want it to end?
No.
That's what I thought. I'd like to say thank you to you, Mami. Thank you so much for coming and opening up your heart, your soul to us, and just sharing all that you've shared to us and with us, because it means so much. This is such an invaluable experience that I feel will change our lives for the better.
Mine.
Yeah.
It's changed mine.
For the better. And for many years, there's always going to be that one word that you said that I'm always going to remember. Like I wrote in bold, just for today.
Yeah.
And that for me was such a powerful statement that you said. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you for
I could
having
speak
me and
with
allowing
you.
me to share with you. It's really impacted me in ways that I can't express. So if it can touch one person, we've done our job.
Sure. Thanks, Mama. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And also to Winnie Mandela. The reason why we're wearing black,
Yes.
we're wearing, black. I'm out here wearing a bandana, mostly because my hair ain't good today. But anyways,
Nobody needs to know that.
but we're wearing black in remembrance of Mama
Mama.
Winnie Mandela. We just want to say, you didn't die, you multiplied.
multiplied.
So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Cool box